What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Again, we are still working on the Porsche 924S. Last episode, we got the management sorted out, designed, and mounted. So to continue along with that, we are wiring today. Gonna wire the car. Now normally this would be pretty quick and pretty easy depending on how the car came apart and how you ran all the wiring throughout the car. Because normally I use the Airlift 3P3H system. I've put that in many of my cars. I know the system well. Fairly easy to wire that system in. This project, we're using a system that I am unfamiliar with, and this is the Feel Air system. If you saw the last episode, we talked about the manifold. We talked a little bit about the system overall, but today we're going to dive in a little bit more in detail because I'm going to be wiring the car with this system. The Bag Riders guys use this system in a few of their cars, a few of their shop cars. They really like the way it performs. It is a little bit different wiring than Airlift. I really do like that Airlift is pretty simplified. It's one harness with the pigtails that come off of that harness and everything's labeled. This is a little different right off the get-go. But I think what I'm looking at here is basically a stack of wires that would normally be loomed together in the Airlift system. Because when I look at the schematic, it's all relatively the same stuff. So I think it just looks a little bit more involved and a little bit more daunting simply because of its packaging. Right, so what I'm in the middle of right now is just trying to figure out a path to run through the car. I've already got the driver's seat out because when I dropped the rear end for the first time, I had to get the e-brake cable out. So I really want to run all my wiring along this threshold up the driver's side. Unfortunately, the battery's on the passenger side, so I need to make sure I have enough wiring to route its way throughout the trunk, come through the car up to the front, and cross over to the battery. So I like coming up in here because I've got more options for an ignition key power source to actually turn the system on this side of the car. So we'll see. That's what I'm in the middle of doing right now. This is the first Porsche 924 I've ever owned, so all of the interior pieces are my first go-around. I don't know whether or not you just pull harder or push harder, or there's a hidden bolt or screw somewhere. So that's always daunting. I end up always referring to the internet half the time when I'm working on a new car or a new platform, but breaking a tab or snapping something plastic that's bolted in is always a nightmare, especially with these older European cars where everything's brittle now. All right, so I'm not going to go through every painstaking little detail on the wiring, but what I will say is Bag Riders includes a schematic that they put together themselves and kind of lays everything out for you in pretty much layman terms to the harnesses that come with the Feel Air management. And it does lay out color coordinated as well, pretty much where you need to put everything. But basically, at the manifold in the trunk, this plugs into the harness in the manifold, as does this. This runs to the controller, and that's pretty self-explanatory just by looking at the switches, or the connectors, I should say. So these two start at the manifold. Off the manifold harness, there's a ground, and that'll stay right in the trunk because there's plenty of places to ground. Then, also in the trunk, I'm going to mount this relay. Out of the harness, out of the manifold, goes a line that goes all the way to the battery, which is low amperage. This has like a 7 amp fuse in it. Out of that harness goes my ignition power here. So this will go to a key power ignition source. These two connect, as I've already done here, to the relay, which are for the compressor. So this is probably internal pressure switch. This will read pressure at the manifold and tell the relay to kick the compressor on or kick it off. So these two are compressor. And there's two that aren't getting connected right here. These two as well, same colors. This is for a second compressor. Now out of the relay, we've got the main line to the compressor. So basically I will splice this into the power line off the compressor. This here, I haven't quite figured out what this one is for yet, because technically this is for the second compressor here. But that being said, this I just won't do anything with. I'll put a test light to it when everything's on. But this goes to my compressor. Then this goes all the way up to the battery with this. They include an inline fuse for this power line. So this gets attached here. Bag Riders also includes this extra spool of wire for the ground to the compressor, because that will also run up to the battery to the ground. All right, guys, so I've got all the airlines run, but what I've done is I've come out of one of the drain plugs or grommets in the spare tire well right here on the side. There's one underneath. It's actually missing a grommet that I got to get put back in there. But this one here allowed me to go right straight forward with the airlines and up and over the transmount and up over everything that moves. Axles that spin, trailing arms that go up and down, even the movement of the transmission against the body of the car, since that is on rubber mounts and that will have some movement as well. So got those up and over secured. Leader lines are on. The rear bags, which go to a PTC fitting, they are kind of up in narrow ways. I really wanted, this one's up in here, I really wanted to keep them accessible from under the car if you're beside the road and there's a fitting failure. I've really kind of tried to take that into account. I have been broke down on the side of the road before with a leak, trying to figure out what fitting it's coming from, if it's a fitting at all. So I try to have all of my connection points within reach. These are going to be a little tough to get to, but it was the best path of least resistance or least movement. I have 2 lines that have to go up to the front of the car. Well, technically 3 actually. I've got 2 powers, and then I've got my ground that needs to go all the way up as well. And I know what some of you may be thinking, and I thought about this too. This is a terrible location for a grommet with a hole in it when you're driving the car, because all road debris, wet or dry, is coming back this way. And it's going to be headed right for this spare tire well at this grommet. I'll probably end up siliconing around it. It is pretty tight, and I'd be surprised if even water can get in at this point. But as a contingency plan, I'll silicone that up because I have thought about that. All right, so while taking everything apart on the battery, the positive terminal on the positive post snapped, and that's okay. This was pretty old and everything was super corroded, which is why I was taking everything apart in the first place and not just hooking up my power lines. So got a new one, gonna put that one on. The ground side is good. That's wrapped and looks great. So gonna put this one on and we'll be in better shape rather than that old corroded one. All right, guys, so the car is wired. Everything's hooked up. I think we're good to go there. Car's plumbed. I still need to make the awards for Alpine Volks Fair. Need to get over to the laser machine in the next couple of days and start that, since I can't forget about that. And we leave a week from today, early in the morning. So, plus a bunch more commission work I need to cram in between now and the week after Helen, because the week after Helen, I'm headed to Europe for almost an entire month in June. And there's a couple big announcements there. Going to be talking to you guys more about that in the next episode. But that'll do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching and for all the support. We will see you in the next episode.